Hello, welcome back. This is Jeff Byers. This is ANI 235 Module 1 course assignment, turn-in instructions. In this video I'm going to take you through how to create your file system, how to get everything organized and get turned in and get it uploaded. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to have to look under the Module 1 course assignment, turn-in instructions. The video that I'm creating right now will be right here. Deliverables, you're going to be looking at turning in a low poly and high poly stylistic face model as a Maya, MB, FBX, or OBJ file formats. Okay. So I can't really show you those files. Obviously, they're just files, but I'm going to continue, and then we'll come back to this, and then I'll show you the rest of the structure. So the second one is one perspective front screenshot smooth shade of the low poly and high poly stylistic face model. So basically what you're going to be doing is putting them both together side by side in the same scene. One is going to be smoothed and one is not going to be smoothed. Now this is something we covered in the last tutorial right here. Okay. Now if I didn't, all you have to do is select the low poly, duplicate it over, make sure you put them in layers and stuff, and then you go in and smooth it. Okay. Alright, so that's what you'll have to do. You'll always want to keep your low poly, never touch that, meaning don't smooth it and don't make those mistakes, because that'll cost you. So what I want you guys to do is always duplicate. In fact, I duplicate it, put it in a layer, duplicate it, put it in a layer. Maybe have 3 or 4 of these low polys just in case, and then save your scene as a sequence like I've been teaching you. Otherwise, if you save over top of the same scene and your scene gets corrupted, you could have all kinds of issues and problems. So make sure you keep that in mind too as well. Alright, so line 2 is basically this one right here. That's what that will look like. And then line 3, one perspective front screenshot, wireframe, unsmooth shade, low poly, high poly, and that's this one right here. So you'll be turning something like this in. Hopefully it looks like that. And then the next line, you will turn in a full HD 1080 front perspective render, low poly and high poly stylistic face model. And that's what that will look like. Okay. And then the last one, the student will turn in a HD 1080 front perspective wireframe render of the low poly, high poly stylistic model face model. Alright, so this is kind of the, when we're just asking for modeling, low poly modeling, you'll be turning that in high poly modeling, that's what that will look like. So you never want to get rid of the low poly. You never want to turn the low poly into a high poly unless you duplicate the low poly, because you want to keep it low poly in case you want to come back to it and make changes. So just remember that. Okay, once you go to the high poly, it's really hard to fix things. When it's low poly like this, you can move vertices around, but you can see how trying to move these vertices around would cause all kinds of trouble. Okay, because it's just too dense of a mesh. Alright, so those are the 4 images that I want to see. These are the screenshots, these 2 right here, and these are the renders right here, these 2. Okay, so let's go back to the first one. Like I said, how do we get the MB? So these are file formats. Again, I can't just show you because it'll just be file formats. And FBX and OBJ. Let's talk about these really quick. MB file is the native format for Maya. Okay, means Maya binary. Okay, FBX is a universal standard file format that saves your objects, your lighting, your animations. It is a great universal, and a lot of game engines use this. OBJ is a universal object format. Okay, so when you see that object file, what that is that we've got a object, which is just your mesh. Okay, it does not save your lighting, does not save your animation or anything like that. It just saves your object. Okay. Now this is universal for programs like Substance Painter and ZBrush and Mudbox and things like that. That's a universal. Also a universal object file for, like, say I want to save it and bring it into Blender, or I want to save it, I want to bring it into another software package like 3ds Max. You can save it as an OBJ file. Okay, so that's what that means. I want all three of them because you never know what you're going to use these for, and if you save them now, you don't have to go back and have to scramble and try to find out or try to figure out how you can get those saved. But I'm going to show you how to do that right now. Okay, so I'm going to go back into my Maya file here. Okay, so you can see I've got both of those. Let me put wireframe on shaded so you can see. There we go. Alright, so what I'm going to do here, I'm going to put my background lighting into, so I don't have to select that accidentally. What you're going to do is, for your MB file, that one's the easiest one. You just go in here and you go to File. Okay. And what I want you to do, this is probably the easiest way to do this. Let's go do this way. Because we don't want all that junk and all those layers. So what we want to do is we just want to highlight both of these. Okay, this is the best way to do it. That way we don't get any other junk or any other modeling duplicates or anything. We just have these two. And go into File, Export Selection. Okay, File, Export Selection. It's a little different than saving your scene. Now, don't get this confused with saving your scene every day when you're working. This is only when you turn things in. Okay, this is the only time I want you to do this is when you're turning things in to me. Okay, your personal stuff should be saved as Save As. But go to File, Export Selection, and go into the option box. And you can see I have it OBJ, so I'm just going to look for MB file. So Maya binary. Okay. There's nothing you really have to do in here, so you just click on Export Selection. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my desktop. Okay. And I'm just going to type in my first name, my last name, and I'm going to go into Annie. This is going to be Annie 235, right? And I don't care what you say after this. You can put like mod 01, and then under here just describe what it is. So this is your low high poly, or you can just say face. That's good. So something like that would be fine. I know that's a long. So I got my first name, last name, Annie 235, mod 1, face. And then it says right here Maya binary. Okay, so that's what I want, Maya binary. Okay, that's going to give me an MB file, and I'm going to do it to my desktop so I can find it easily. Okay, so I'm going to click on Export Selection and continue. There we go. And you'll do this for all your stuff, all your modules. Once you do it here, you're going to do it for all your modules. So the next time you see my turn in instructions, I may not go over this, so you'll have to come back to module 1 if you forgot how to do this. Okay. Now the next thing is that you want to check is I would highly recommend, if you don't see something that I go over, you're going to want to go to Windows and go to Settings Preferences and Plugin Manager. I'll hold this up here for a while so you guys can check it out. And I want you to do this now, so you don't have to do this later. Once you do it once, you should be good to go. So Windows, Settings, Preferences, and Plugin Manager. Okay, what that does is that when you have things like Arnold and you don't see Arnold rendering, you have to basically turn it on, because the Plugin Manager as default doesn't have everything auto-loaded, right? So you can see, you may not see Redshift for Maya. I have it, but you may not see that, but that's a plugin. Bullet time or bullet is usually deselected because a lot of these take a lot of memory. Okay, so you can see that it's hard to find plugins, but I found the FBX. But if you find that when you try to export your object and you don't see FBX as something you can click on, then it's because it's not loaded. Okay. So what I want you to do though in here, let's go to the top and just click load it, or excuse me, just click on auto load, and go down and make sure everything's auto load, and just auto load everything so you don't have to worry about anything. Okay, and here some of them say apply to all. Just click on auto load and it applies to all. So, and then refresh once you're done. Okay, and then close that out, and you won't have to do that again. Okay, and the reason why I want you to do that, Windows Settings Preferences Plugin Manager, load the plugins, and because when you select these two and you go to File, Export Selection in the option box, and you try to find it in here, it may not show. And if it doesn't show, you have to kind of scroll. Remember, you got the scroll bar. If you don't see it, I mean, I see it because I auto-loaded, right? So the next one is going to be FBX. So we got the MB file, now the FBX. So you got to highlight those, Export Selection, and then find the export option that you want. Click on Export Selection. And this one's a little more involved because FBX lets you add geometry. And when you look at this, you have to open up File, type specific options. Geometry, make sure smoothing groups is on and smooth mesh is on. And then you got this, do you have animation? Do you want the animation to move over? Well, we don't, so I could deselect that if I wanted to. I'm just going to leave it. It's not going to hurt anything. And we've got all kinds of other things in here. You got cameras, lights, audio, all that stuff can be transferred over into this file format, which makes it very powerful. And the version that I want, FBX 2020, that's great. Okay, and all I need to do is name it. Well, I wanted to name it the same way. Okay, so same thing, and it's Annie 235. Module 01, and this is face. Alright, now instead of having to type this out every single time, I'm going to copy it this time, so I'm going to go Control C, and then this is my FBX, and I'm going to go to the desktop. Okay, you can see that I clicked on that and export selection. So and it's giving me unable to export some materials. That's okay. I think it's still exported it. So it may not like some materials. So what if I think I have a AI standard surface material, didn't like that. So what you can do is do a basic material by right clicking over it, assign new material, and just click on blend. That's all you have to do. And then go to file, let's try it this time. Export selection and see if it gives me any craziness. Export selection, everything's the same. Oh, I don't have to rename it, I can just go Control V. And there it is, and we'll rewrite that. Export selection, yes. And that time it didn't give me a foul, or didn't give me a warning, or didn't give me anything. So it just was having a hard time with the Arnold standard surface. Okay, so that's what you can do to fix that. Let's see the next one. Yes, so highlight that one. We're going to go to export selection, and the next one is going to be OBJ. Now, OBJ is not very picky at all. In fact, this is it. And then export selection, and then I'm going to go into Control V, and there we are. Okay, so that's it, and just name it like you named the other ones in export selection. Alright, so it should be all saved to the desktop. Let's take a look, and then we can move forward with the rest of the instructions. Okay, so now that we have all of these, okay, all of these are done. Okay, now we got to move on to the structure. Okay, here's the structure we have. We got to think about. So I want you to name it exactly that. I don't want any deviation. Okay, I need your first name underscore last name underscore Annie235 underscore mod underscore 01. And you're going to make a scenes folder, a screenshots folder, and a renders folder. Okay, let's go ahead and do that. Okay, so you can see all of my files are here. You can see why it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to show you a file. That's what it looks like. So, and we'll take you through. So, what are these then? Right now, this is your MB file, and that's what that looks like. It's says MB on it. Maybe the icon's different. I don't know. And then this is your FBX file, self-contained. So those two are self-contained. Okay. This is not self-contained, meaning that this is your OBJ file. That's basically your object. And this is your MTL file. So if your object had materials on it, it's going to show up in here. Okay. So if you had an object with a bunch of materials on it, let's say they're AI standard surface materials from Arnold, or they're Blinn materials from Maya, that's written into this code right here. And these two have to be put together. Okay, so that's what that means. So you have two different files, actually files for the OBJ file. Okay. If you don't have that file with it, and you import that object and that file, MTL is not with it, or close, or in the same file, it will be separated and it will not pull in your materials. Okay, you won't see them. So those are the problems with OBJ. But if you know how it works, like you do now, then you keep them together forever. So that make sure that your materials go with it. So you're going to take these guys right here. So you're going to make your files, right? So here's my files. Okay, this is my main file folder. These are my subfolders: scenes, screenshots, and renders. Okay, pretty simple. And you can see that I've got my screenshots here. Okay, I've got my renders here. Okay, and I've got my files here. Okay, so my files will go into my scenes folder. So I drag and drop those. Okay, and my screenshots go into the screenshots folder, and my renders, they go into the renders folder. Okay, now if you don't know how to make a folder on the desktop, you can right click over the desktop and go to new folder. Okay, alright, so now that you got all this in, you're going to double click on it and just double check that you have 1, 2, 3, 4 files. Okay, right, and then my scenes folder, then in my screenshots folder, you see that you have your screenshots. And then in your renders folder, you can see that I've got my renders in there. And then what we're going to do is we're going to select those. We're going to drag and drop those into the main folder, like that. And we're going to double click and make sure all those folders are in there. And a lot of times, I know it sounds crazy, but I go in there and make sure everything is in there. It's your responsibility that, and let me just make that clear, if I've not made it clear before. This is our first module and our first assignment turn-in. But with me as an instructor, I've seen it all. And one of the biggest pet peeves that I have is students that send me files that are empty. They send me the file and they expect that's enough to get them a couple extra days. It won't work with me. Okay, so if you make that mistake, you'll have to own up to that. And every day that it's late, it's 4 points off. So I would highly recommend that everybody just double check and make sure there's stuff in your folders, and make sure what you're uploading is the folder that should be in that module 1 turn-in. Okay, so you're responsible for that, not me. If you make a mistake, you have to own up to your mistake and take the points off. Okay, now here's the problem. Sometimes I'm not able to get to your work for a week because I've got 4 of the classes and I have up to a week to grade. So what if I open this up a week later and there's nothing in it? Well, that's 7 days times 4 points. You can see how that could be really devastating to you. Okay, now I cannot give you leeway on this. The reason why I can't do that, because it would be unfair to other students. Let's say you play that game, you give me an empty folder, and you're screaming, oh my gosh, I just made a mistake. You have to own up to your mistakes. That is your mistake, not mine. And you have to make sure that you double check and make sure there are things in your folder. And you have to make sure they're the right things. A lot of you will turn in folders and you'll turn in the wrong assignment. Again, that's another ploy. It could be an honest mistake, but again, you got to see it from my point of view. It could be another ploy to get extra days that other students can't get. I'm trying to make this as fair as possible to everyone. Okay? Alright, so With that said, all right, you can see my point of view is that you have to be responsible for turning things in. The next thing is, once you get that done, okay, now we're going to go into, we need to send to. So this is how I want you to compress it. I don't want you giving me crazy compressions that I can't open up. If I can't open this up, it's the same as giving me a folder that's empty, because if I can't open it up, I can't grade it. So this is how I want you to compress it. Don't give me a RAR file. I will not accept those. Okay, the only file I'm going to accept is a regular zipped uncompressed or a compressed folder. So right click over it, and this is how you do it. Okay, this is why I'm showing you. Right click over it, highlight it, and then go to send to compressed zipped folder. The reason why I do this is because basically anything will open that up. Okay, this is what you're going to send up to me. This is what you're going to upload into Module 1. Okay? Alright? Alright, have a great day, and I'll see you guys in Module 2.